tunnels into large caverns. We're then going to be making our way up a series of staircases, and we should arrive triumphant at the top of the hill in about 35 minutes time. So before we get to that point, we have one or two minor challenges, if you pardon the pun. We have, for instance, some tunnels to negotiate that go down to about 5 feet in height. The very narrowest point is just as we go down this first section here, it's about that wide, so it doesn't really get any narrower than that at any stage. So just watch out, if somebody ducks, then you duck. If somebody goes out, then duck a bit lower. Now, we're also going to have a few slopes. It's a little bit slippery going down here. So use the handrail. Also, just as we come out of the second longer tunnel, there's a few steps down, and then a rather innocuous looking slope. At the end of that gets very polished. So just watch your step there. I've had a few Michael Jackson impressions today. Very impressive. Now, we have 1 or 2 steps underground. When I say 1 or 2, what I really mean is 175. Now, that does sound like quite a lot, but there is some good news and some bad news. The good news is that 16 of those steps go down. You're working at the bad news, yeah? So 159 go up. So they are in 3 goes. You have 42, and then 37, and then a little bit later you've got 80 just to finish off the tour. I mean. Now, when you get to the top of that last flight of 80 steps, there is a bench to sit on, which is nice. I mean, there is only one bench, but I'm sure you'll work something out. Yes. And because of the physical nature of the tour, we do say that those with heart conditions, respiratory or mobility concerns might want to think a bit more carefully about whether or not it's the right tour for them. We're not going to be racing through, but it does get quite hard as you're climbing up all those steps and through the tunnels and things. So we do offer, therefore, a virtual tour, yes, which is essentially a video of the tour. And that is in the High Fall Centre just over the way there. Okay? Well, we don't want to do that, do we? No, of course not. There is a point at which you can still escape once you get in the cavern. So I'll tell you when we get to it, a point of no return if you like. So I'll remind you when we get to that point. We're also going to expect to have a bit of a drop in temperature as we go down the slope. It goes down to about 7 degrees. And at one stage, the highlight, if you like, of the cavern tour, I will turn the lights off. Yes. Exactly. Good. That's the attitude. But some of you might not be quite so keen on that. So if you're anxious about the dark, just close your eyes during that whole section. Yes, that'll work perfectly well. Just don't tell anybody. Right, okay, shall we head into the cavern? Yeah! Alright. if you'd like to make your way through into the cavern, there's plenty of space to fill up here. Now don't disappear into that way. No. Right this way. Come up towards the barrier. That's it. Just concerned about the people that were stranded in the race there. There we go, we're all here now. I think we are, aren't we? Double check. Yeah, excellent. So, welcome to the seaside, everybody. Yes, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yes, just keep, no, it makes no sense at all. However, many millions of years ago, where we're standing now would have been the bottom of a tropical ocean. Okay, all of the rock in this area is formed from the build-up of sea creatures on the bottom of the ocean, being crushed down by all the weight of water on top, turning into the rock that we see around us, believe it or not. So we're talking about 350 million years ago, in what we call the Carboniferous period. So this is limestone rock, and we see it everywhere in this part of Derbyshire. Occasionally, if you're lucky, you look at a piece of limestone and you can actually see a fossil in it of the sea creatures that once made the oceans around here. Most of the time, it's all crushed down into nothingness. This is an annoying place, isn't it? There we go. But sometimes we will see fossils, and in fact, in the last section of this tour, we're going to see some fossils. Okay? So that's coming a bit later. But just in the meantime, just comfort yourself with the notion that everywhere we go today, we're surrounded by billions of dead bodies. That's nice and cheerful, isn't it? Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, about 180 million years ago, so we've skipped forward about 130 million years now, we find that the Earth is shifting about quite a bit. All the plates that cover the Earth constantly moving, and cracks developing in them, and into those cracks you get minerals rising up from below. So what do we mean by minerals? Things like
rocks.
A bit like rocks, okay. Yes, that's good. Gold, that's all minerals. This guy is a geologist, basically. He knows his stuff. So yes, we are talking gold. Not in this mine, unfortunately. But we are talking iron, we're talking copper, we're talking tin. But in this particular mine, they were looking for lead. Okay, so this is a lead mine. So this is a piece of galena. Now galena is lead ore. And galena literally means the shiny, sparkly one. You can kind of see why, can't we? And in actual fact, it's where we get the name Helen, or Helena. Yes, so the good news is that if you're called Helen, you're named after a shiny piece of rock. The not so good news is that you're named after a toxic lump. Okay? Because lead is quite toxic, as it turns out. Now the Romans, the Latin for lead is plumbum, and they created the first plumbing systems out of lead pipe. That's why plumbing is called plumbing. We don't really do that anymore because, as it turns out, it's not very good for us. But the Romans developed a bit of a taste for lead, believe it or not. And when I say taste for it, I mean in the most literal sense. So they ground that lead down into a powder, and then they sprinkle it on their food. They sprinkle it in their wine. Apparently it made things taste sweet, so like a natural sweetener. And now, yeah, it does turn out that was a really bad idea, and there's no Roman Empire anymore. That's what we need to know about that. Yes, lessons to be learned. But if we skip forward now to when John Walker, he was a miner, he was looking for lead, or galena rather, in this particular mine, and that was about 350 years ago, in the 1670s. Now at that time, lead was very, very popular. It had an awful lot of different uses, things like roofing, guttering, window. That's an interesting one, isn't it, the pencil question. A lot of people do believe that lead was in pencils, and that lead is in pencils, because we call it the pencil lead, don't we? Yeah. But actually it's a substance called graphite, yeah. But it is related, and in fact graphite used to be known as black lead. which is why people say lead, really. But lead wouldn't really work in a pencil. It's not quite soft enough to actually make any mark on a piece of paper. But yeah, there were lots and lots of uses though, nevertheless. So that's why he was down here. So we can now look and see the evidence of him in action. Here we see pickaxe marks in the walls. Up here we see soot marks from the candles that he would have been using to light up the caverns. That's all they had was candles. Here's another one, and here's another one. And over here are all the leftover rocks that they couldn't be bothered taking out of the cavern. These are called miners' deads. And we'll see them everywhere we go as we walk through this cavern. All these piles of rocks and walls and things at the side. They're just leftover waste rocks. Okay, so we're going to head through the pipe vein now. This is our point of no return. Our last chance to dip out of the tour. So if we're going on, we're going all the way through the cavern now. So I've done my bit of rock over here and I'll lead you through.
Because we've gone down every step. If you don't, you'll get going up a lot of steps.
Carved out this space, believe it or not. It's very, very powerful when it's under pressure and there's enough of it and given enough time. So probably about 10,000 years ago, and then after the water disappeared, it actually filled up, the cavern filled up with sediment. Okay, lots of little bits of grit. Okay, like sand if you like. Now it's obviously not here anymore, yes? So what happened was a guy called John Tinker came down this mine shaft here, this is about 40 metres down, and dropped down onto all of that sand and sediment and started digging it up. Okay, now it wasn't for fun. He actually found that it was full of the galena, the lead ore that he was looking for. Okay, so he dug it all out. It took him 6 years to empty this cavern, which is not bad going, really. Now, this is the point where we're going to turn the lights off. We're going to turn the lights on as well, which is good. So we'll start off by turning the lights off. Hey, you're all right. Right, so I'm also going to turn my torch off, so that is just a hint. Anyone who's got a torch, keep them turned off, please, for the next few minutes. Phones in your pockets out of the way. You're unlikely to get a phone signal down here, since we're about 130 feet below the surface. Anyway, here we go. Shall we count it down?
3,
2, 1. So, lovely stuff. So actually, if you look around, you will see that we're going to stick some candles on. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's made all the difference, hasn't it? Yeah. Should we have a few more then? Okay. Still not quite there, are we? Now, back in the 1800s, in the middle of the Victorian period, tourism was actually big business down here at the Heaits of Abraham. There were people coming down into the caverns, thousands of people visiting Matlock of an afternoon, pouring off the trains and stuff in the centre of Matlock Bath. So, as they came into this cavern, they would find that the owners had put up a huge chandelier down the end. They used to describe this as the sun's splendour underground. Now, I am going to turn it on, but the warning here, you're not supposed to look the sun directly for fear of harming your eyesight. So here we go, we'll count this down, but just be aware. 3, 2, 1. Are we alright? We've still got our eyesight intact. Excellent. Right, now we do have a little bit more light that we can turn on, and maybe we can actually see what we're doing. No, maybe not. No, try again. No, and again. No, what's going on? Okay, have we got it the right way up? Yes. Ah, there we go. Moment there. Right, so all sorts of things to look out for here. Did anybody see the elephant? There he is, yeah? Looking pretty cool. Got a little eye winking at you. Got his forehead there, his trunk coming around the corner. Directly below that we've got a spooky face. Look here. Some say it looks like a lion. I'm not sure about that. Bit of iron pyrite up here, also known as fool's gold. Yes, we've come across fool's gold before. There we go. Now, one other thing. Over here we have what we call a geode of calcite. Rather impressive size of geode. Now calcite, you have actually been seeing calcite all the way through the cavern system. So all those little sparkly bits in the rock that you see make it look a little bit like a grotto. That's all little flecks of calcite, but this is a lot of calcite in one place. Now that sparkle is very useful actually, because if you grind calcite down into a powder, which is a lot easier to do than you might think, you can then add it to things and it gives it a bit of a sparkle. So for instance, the white lines that you get on the road, they've all got calcite in them to varying degrees, and that is what makes them reflect back in your headlights. So very, very useful. People who are protecting, who are restoring old buildings would use calcite instead of sand in the sandblasters, because it's a lot softer, it's a lot more delicate, it doesn't damage the masonry, so it's very useful. And the only reason I know that is because last year I had somebody on one of these tours who was doing that very week down in London. So there we go. We have another bit of calcite up here that we call Mick Jagger's lips. There we go. Now that is the end of my intervention down here, my sort of bit that I'm going to sort of do. But you have a few more things to look out for as you go up these stairs and into the next cavern and then out through the 80 steps at the end. So as you go up into the next cavern, you'll go up some steps here, you'll turn a corner and you'll be walking back in the other direction. So you look over to the right hand side and on the wall you will see a plaque. Now that plaque was carved into the wall by the miners who were working down there in 1705, and you can see the date on it. You can also see a number of initials. So here's a few of them. There's a guy called Tom Woods, TW. He started working down the mine when he was 7 years old. Also, you've got MF, Mordecai Fern. He finished working in the mine when he was 78 years old. So the whole sort of spectrum there, so quite a long sort of working life. Now on the other side, you will notice this slimy bit of rock. Beautiful slimy rock. It's called flowstone, but the miners used to call it snot rock. And you'll see why when you see it. So have a little bit of a stroke of the snot rock up your way past. And then if you've done that, have a look above the snot rock to the ceiling above, and the keen-eyed amongst you will be able to spot some fossils in the ceiling there. Okay? Horseshoe-shaped fossils that are essentially shellfish-like clams, called brachiopods. So there we go. So that is my bit of the tour done. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, my name is Steve. If you didn't, my name is Steve. And have a really nice rest of your day at the Heights. Hope to see you again sometime. And thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's like a Mexican wedding. Good morning. Right, guys. Good. We have another project again. So if you'd like to take your way, look and sit as far over that side as you can. So you're essentially just going to pass that wall. of rock here. Just watch yourself though, sir. You've been very brave. Excellent.